Okay, all right. So first first conflict transformation hub meeting of the year. As I said, this is informal meeting. We're really just here to get to know each other, to hear about our work. And because we're quite a small group today, it's fine if we don't take up the full hour. So usually the meetings they take 1 hour, but yeah, if it's fine, we just see how we're getting on. Um, would you like me to start and tell you a little bit? I don't know, George, have you been to any previous conflict hub meetings? I don't remember.
A long time ago when it was first set up in an earlier instantation of it, but not
Oh,
for a
I
long time.
see. I see. Okay. Oh, that's so interesting. So you're one of the old conflict hub people.
Probably very old.
I mean, old not in terms of age, of course, in terms of membership and
That's
experience.
right. Up to the humanitarian summit, and I was
Mm,
I've dropped things have I've watched things since then, but yeah, very glad for what you've done, what you're doing. Very grateful for what you're doing.
okay. Oh, great. Thank you, George. No, it's fantastic to have you here because um I'm not actually sure if we've had any of the old conflict hub people in any of the. I mean, obviously, this is only the second open conflict hub meeting so far. So basically, and this is maybe also if in case anyone listens to the recording later, right, to catch up, just a bit of background. So there was the old conflict hub, right, which you knew, George, that was active for a couple of years. I think it ceased activities in 2017, I think, if I remember correctly. Um, there is more information on the JLI website in case anyone wanted to look it up. And this was like as usual with our hubs, right? Quite often once we have published the scoping study that looks at what evidence on the topic that the hub focuses on, once that is published, then there's often like a little dip in the level of activities, right? Like it just feels like this was, at least for the time being, this was the main purpose of the hub, and then it often comes to a point where things just slow down, and then some hubs they manage to find a new way of engaging with their members, sometimes with the old members, sometimes with new members, but some hubs also don't, and then that's it, they just stop being active, and that's okay, right? There is no, from our side, from GLI side, there is no expectation on how long a hub should be run. um, yeah, so that was what happened to the conflict hub, and we then had in um, in late 2020 we had a meeting, a project that focused on PVE, on preventing violent extremism, with a focus on religion. And it was a 3 months project where we worked with a group of young practitioners and activists from across the world who all had experience and an interest in PVE and religion. Um, and we then worked with them to work on their research skills, to allow them to do research on the topic themselves, right? And PVE was really it was really broadly defined. So it wasn't they actually all of the members didn't have a PVE background in a narrow sense, but it was really conflict transformation, peace building, and so on. And yeah, we worked with them for 3 months, and it was a great group. And at the end of the 3 months, the project was over, the funding had run out, but they were really all still so motivated. And some of them said, we would like to continue the work. And that's when we said, okay, we'll do that. We'll revive the Conflict Hub. Um, and then in the beginning, it was just for that group. It was 11 people. But yeah, we worked with them for a couple of months, and then we said actually maybe it would be a good idea to open the sessions up again, and that's what we did. Oh, who's there?
Yeah.
Oh. Zoom meetings are always better when there's a cat or a dog that make appearance. Or baby. Baby is also highly rated. Um, yeah, so and then we had the first open Conflict Hub meeting was sometime last year. And um we really just took I mean, it was a bit of an experiment. We didn't know how many people were going to show up. We didn't know what their backgrounds were going to be, but we said we'll create a space they can get together and then we'll see what they're interested in. And the topic actually of this session, conflict, um, climate, and religion, was suggested at that meeting. Um, so that's how we came together. I don't know what happened today. I don't know if there's just not a lot of interest. That could be one explanation. I spoke with that about that with Jody um, before we started the recording. Um, it could be the topic because it's so niche. It could be, yeah, it could also just be that people aren't. I mean, there is also for conflict and faith related topics, there are quite a lot of platforms that people can join. So it could also, I mean, obviously at JLI, we always have to focus on producing evidence on the topic and doing collaborative research. So that's something that sets it a bit apart, but it might still be that there's just not that much of an interest. I guess we'll find that out in the next couple of months. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, good to have you two here. As I said, my background is mostly in conflict and religion. The climate and religion side of things is not so much climate and religion, or even climate and conflict. It's not so much my area of expertise. But then we have Jody for climate and religion. And I mean, George, yeah, I'm really interested to hear from you what your background is, what made you come today. Um, yeah.
Super. Jody, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure, I can go first. So yeah, as Jennifer said, I've done some work for the JLI on the intersection of climate and religion before, but I'm also about to next month submit my PhD, which is on faith-based organizations and climate advocacy. Your cat is very cute. Mostly in and around kind of UN spaces, so at COP, but also kind of how they extend the UN space beyond the formal spaces. Anyway, so yeah, mostly focusing on climate advocacy. And then the bits of work I've done for the JLI have been, again, mapping anything from mapping faith actors' environmental projects to most recently working with Jennifer on a project for the WRI on environmental surveys with the Episcopal Church in the Philippines. And the conflictist dimension is not something which I know much about. I know only one piece of research which looks at the intersection of religion or faith actors and climate and conflict. As Jennifer said, there seems to be a lot focusing on climate and religion, or conflict and religion, or climate and conflict, but not much which brings them all together. So I guess I came because I'm interested to see what there might be to explore there.
Super, thank you. So I'm based in Edinburgh, Scotland. I run a program on religion and ethics in the making of war and peace, and have done since 2007. I've done some work in Bosnia, have done some work in the Middle East, and perhaps I could type into the chat the web address for that. There's one further thing that moves into the environmental overlap with conflict that I'd like to add. I've begun a memory bank project with some colleagues, especially some colleagues in Syria, who are working to test it. And I'm really glad if anybody's got any interest in that. It's called Diverse Communities Living Together. So the idea is providing a space for gathering memories of localities where it was once normal for people to show solidarity and to have friendships across religions and across cultures. So in places like Syria, Lebanon, Bosnia, Serbia, Albania, places in Africa, places in Asia, and uh, with some colleagues in Cornell, for instance, I've been exploring the ways in which climate adaptation and conflict interact with each other. And that has taken me into thinking not just about memories that are factual, but also about stories and narratives which join religion and morality to interpretation of why climate's changing or why communities face climate change, and effectively or ineffectively, why they face conflict ineffectively or effectively. So I'm really interested in collaborations and, as I said, a team of Syrians who are exploring how this can be used in community development and local peace building in Syria, but hope to do it elsewhere as well. And just really glad of this group, especially glad of the ability of this group to embrace young scholars or activists from around the world and not just from the richest universities. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Jody and George. George, when you say you're based in Edinburgh, is that at the University of Edinburgh?
The project has been based at the University of Edinburgh. It's entirely grant dependent, and at the moment we're at the end of one grant cycle and looking to the next one. So not sure that it will continue to be based at the University of Edinburgh, but that's where it's been based since 2010.
Do you know Ann Sons?
No.
So she's also she has a background in anthropology and development, and she's also based in Edinburgh. I'm just thinking which department, but it must be either anthropology or development.
Yeah, I'll look her up.
Yeah, and she is so she's worked on religion and development in the Syrian context, and she's done really fascinating. She did a presentation for GLI a while ago, not for this hub, but for the monitoring and evaluation hub, where she presented their approach of doing also like what you just mentioned, right? Doing research with people who are not actually researchers, or who were not researchers before, who would not have seen themselves as researchers before, with communities, right? Like on quite a grassroots level, with Syrians, Syrian refugees, mostly in Jordan. I think she's mostly worked in Jordan, but she's also branched out since then. So I know she also did some work in North Africa with Syrian refugees there.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean it might just be interesting. And she doesn't. I don't think. No, wait a second. I don't think she has the climate change aspect as such in her work, but they have worked with farmers, so there is like an agricultural element to their work. So that it might just be interesting to find out. Yeah, and they've also been doing just lots of community stuff. They've been recording field songs that the farmers used to sing, and they've looked at how these field songs, how they act um, how they transport memory, how they, like really interesting stuff.
Mm,
Yeah, I can type her name also in the chat.
brilliant, please.
And this one's
And
here you go. She's a fellow German. Fellow German stuck on this island.
Ah,
Yeah, Jodie and I just had a long conversation about Germans in this country before we
I,
started.
I, I, I empathize. Um, my children and my wife are German, stuck on this island, as you say.
Oh, really? Oh, that's so funny.
On the other hand, they at least they have EU passports, which only I don't have.
Well, I mean, you could. Well, no, but you would need to move to Germany and live there for a couple of years, I think, before you would be able to, yeah, apply for the citizenship.
That's right. I'm sure it would work out if it happened. But at least climate change is making Edinburgh warmer.
Oh, really? Can you already feel it?
Yes, yep, yep. The seasons are changing. Yep.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, I have been joking that because we've had these horrible summers here, like this one summer, what was it, 2 years ago, where it got 40 degrees, right? Um, and so I have been joking that maybe we should all move to Scotland and
No
and
joke. Let's do it.
yeah, and we should do it soon before they realize, right? Um, then they start restricting migration from England to Scotland or
Oh, yeah,
something.
climate migrants. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Is there any work on the topic in like locally in Scotland? Or Jodie, maybe in Leeds. Is there any? I mean, maybe not so much with the conflict element, but the climate change and religion. Are there any groups that are active locally?
I mean, I think there's definitely like local activist groups. I'm not sure there's actually any academic research going on locally, but there is like a community climate hub in Leeds, which does, I think they're looking for funding to do various types of participatory research. But I don't really know whether that includes religion in any form or not. I know groups like Faith of the Climate UK work with local groups across the country, local faith communities across the country on climate. But I'm not sure how much. There's definitely some research on like congregations in Scotland, eco congregations in Scotland that has been done, like on the Church of Scotland, I think it is, and or just no, it's Eco Congregation Scotland is its own organisation, and someone's done, I think, Jeremy Kidwell and some other people have done some research on that in Scotland, which is quite interesting. But yeah, not much conflict. Adam?
Jeremy's fantastic. He's at Birmingham now.
Yes, he's going to be my external example.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice chat. Very nice.
Oh, good. That's good to know. But yeah, there's not obviously much conflict wise, I don't think, in the UK, at least climate related, apart from maybe activists conflicting with the police, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I know Anupama Ranawana, who works for Christian Aid, and she also has an affiliation with St. Andrews. She has published on the church and climate and race. So I mean, this is conflict like in a broader sense of the term, right? Might not be physical. Well, it is often also physical conflict, but then also racism more broadly. So she's done really, really interesting work in this area.
Type her name in the chat.
Yes, of course. She's not German, but we like her anyway. Anupama. She's great. Yeah, we've worked with her. We've worked with her little CLI too.
Right.
Yeah. And then in terms of the hub or JLI more broadly, is there anything that you would be interested in? Like if there, I mean, obviously there is just the three of us in the on the call now, but if people watch this, and is there anything that yeah, from the broader network that would be helpful for you? And we can just issue a call here now, and then people can contact me, and I'll put my email address in the chat if they have any. I mean, yeah, if it could be anything, right? Maybe you're looking for contacts, for tips, anything really. Maybe you're interested in collaboration, in applying for funding together. I mean, this would be your opportunity now, right? To share, and then it will be on the website. And in case anyone sees it and they have a similar interest, then they could either they can get in touch with me. My email address is in the chat now, or if you would like to share your contact details, you can also put them in the chat and they can then get in touch with you directly, whatever works for you.
Jody?
Yeah, I guess I'm not in a position to necessarily apply for funding. I'm slightly in a busy period at the moment, but yeah, I mean, I'm interested in the different ways. I guess I'm kind of interested a bit more to hear, George, about what the intersection between climate adaptation and the conflict and religion dimension is that you mentioned. But I mean, I'm not sure what I have to offer in terms of practical work at the moment or funding opportunities, because I'm slightly in a limbo position at the moment. But I guess, yeah, I'd be interested to connect with people who are exploring the climate and conflict and religion intersection. But that's kind of, sorry, I haven't got loads to contribute at the moment. Yeah, I guess I'm interested in the different ways of understanding the intersection between climate and conflict. So one piece of research talks about religious understandings of climate-induced conflicts, but there might also be other ways of thinking about it, of how religious organizations or faith-based organizations are responding to climate-induced conflicts rather than, yeah, I think thinking about the different ways you can understand the intersection is quite a fruitful avenue for starting to explore that. But yeah.
I mean, I guess another question for you, Jody, would be that okay, you're finishing up the PhD now, so you're going to be busy, right, in the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
But then you have worked with JLI previously as a consultant, and right, we've always valued your work a lot. So if people were interested in working together with you as a consultant, I mean, obviously you will be busy, but would it be okay for people to contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right, and then you can see if you're able to help or not. Or even, I mean, I don't know what your plans are for after the PhD. Do you want to stay in academia, or are you looking for other kind of opportunities?
I think my plan is probably to look for opportunities outside academia at the moment, or continue doing some, I mean, ideally, I mean, I would be very happy to, if anyone wants to reach out and work with me as a research consultant, that would be really great. I mean, from March onwards, I'm free to work with the JLI again, obviously. But I don't have anything concrete lined up just yet. So yeah, I think, and if anyone wants to work on the topic of religion and climate change, or faith actors and climate change, and start to explore the conflict dimension a bit more, that would be something I would be very interested in being involved with. So I can put my email in the chat as well.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know this is not a very British thing to do, but JLI is not a British organization, and you are stuck with your German facilitator here, and this is a very German thing to do. So we said the meeting is there for you to network and meet people, and even if there's not a lot of people in the call right now, there we know that people watch these recordings later. So maybe there is someone, right, who sees this and who's like, oh, okay, we want to start exploring this topic a bit more, and we don't quite know where to start. And then it would be really helpful for them to have someone as experienced as you, Jody, for example, right? To be able to connect with. George, do you have anything else that would be helpful for you?
I am really interested in any colleague who have an interest in both climate change and conflict, or religion and conflict without the climate change part. Not necessarily the climate change part. I'm really interested in colleagues who are working on local contexts and the impact of conflict and climate change on local contexts. In my reflections on that, I've been looking especially at locations that have historically been religiously diverse and culturally diverse, where it's been natural for people of Hindu and Muslim, or Christian and Muslim, Jewish, Druze and Christian, or Jewish and Muslim, and very, very hyper diverse localities where that's been natural and that's broken down. Very often it seems that the explanation for the breakdown is about armed conflict and flight, forced migration. And when you go when one looks more deeply into it, things become much more complex. One angle on the breakdown of that normality in many locations is it's a response to the modern state, and these diverse locations are marginalized. Sometimes they're already marginal, sometimes they're made marginal. In Iraq or Lebanon, the diversity survives in marginal locations sometimes, although we often think of multicultural locations as hyper-cosmopolitan places which are emblems of modernity. They're also very often victims of the economics and the politics of modern states, in Africa as well. And that comes through a little bit in the map on the website, Diverse Communities Living Together. And I suppose that there are other angles where I'd be really interested in colleagues coming up with examples, or promoting the work that they're doing, coming up with ideas of potential group hub collaborations. I'm thinking of locations where climate change is conceived by locals in terms of traditions, of local traditions, which may come across as deep in the culture, narratives, stories that are seen as very emblematic of local culture. Perhaps they cross cultural groups, or perhaps they're spoken of differently in different parts of the community. They can be religious, moral. They can moralize the community's response to climate change, the community's response to division, the community's response to the state. They can moralize what the state is doing. And we're really interested in how the agency of these marginal communities that live in climate-affected locations and conflict-affected locations requires a different lens than the one that is used at the international level, or even at the state level. Perhaps locations where climate adaptation has to happen, and people understand the climate has changed, the climate has historically changed, and so climate change today is also seen in that long-term process of adaptation, as against a more apocalyptic, crisis-focused approach to climate change, where local agency perhaps means a lot less, or is defined from the perspective of someone with enough, who can imagine enough power to meet the apocalypse. On the other hand, there are colleagues working with communities or in communities where apocalyptic, crisis-focused approaches to climate change are primary. I'm really, really super interested in that. I'm not just interested in religiously diverse communities, but especially interested in that. And any stories that folk have or any tips that folk have will be gratefully, very gratefully received. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, George. George, as you were speaking, I just remembered do you know this research center that focuses on apocalyptic studies in Germany?
No, it's not Sensam, is it? I'm just I'll write it down. Thanks.
Yeah, I think it's I don't remember the exact name, but it's something about apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic studies.
Right.
And where was it based? I don't remember, but I mean there's just going to be one of those in Germany. There's not going to be a lot of apocalyptic studies research centers. I don't remember. Was it in Kiel or in Freiburg? I don't remember, but there is one. I just thought that when you mentioned that this might also be interesting, right? An interesting place to connect with, and maybe there are people also who work on similar topics.
You know, Yoram Teresa work on, I think he's done a paper on religious environmental sense making in climate-induced conflicts. That's the only person who I know who, do you know his, I can share you his
Please
paper.
do. That sounds just...
I think he's got a chapter in
See, we might only be a small group, but we still got some information sharing and networking done.
Really super useful. And it's sometimes easier to get into a topic in a smaller group.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've always thought that like it doesn't matter. Like you can have a big group, right? And you can have big impact, but you can have very big impact also with a small group. So like I don't think it's not about the numbers, right? As such. Yeah, and then as I said, we also do know that people watch these recordings later. So we should be able to reach more than just the two of you that we have on the call today. Yeah. Okay, so I mean, with that, we've almost reached. It's almost 3 o'clock now. Which is the time that the call was scheduled until. Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I mean, it would be nice if people were in touch, if they had any questions or suggestions, or they wanted to, yeah, just share their work with any of you two or with us here at the GLI. We have all the emails in the chat now, I think. And then for the Conflict Hub series, so we had a few more topics that were suggested at the meeting last year. From what I remember, conflict, religion, and education was one. And then another one was also conflict, religion, and PVE. So people also said they would like to focus a bit more on this particular aspect. So yeah, let's see. Do keep an eye. If you're on the mailing list for the hub, then you will receive the invites. I'll speak to our comps person to make sure that there's no hiccups with the invites and the registration next time. And yeah, maybe we'll see each other again. Would be lovely.
Great. I think that I think it's really important. I of course it's a really important intersectional topic, and it leads into so many other aspects of interest to the whole of the hub. I imagine the whole of the JLI. If I was suggesting topics like food or water, I mean, there's so many different things. I'm sure. I'm really grateful that you are reaching out and that you have this hub, and that you're also interested in the intersections like this. So thank you very much, Jennifer and Jody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. No, thank you. I mean, it's good to hear that. And I mean, I think the good thing also with the Conflict Hub is now is also because this is the second iteration of it. We have broached a lot of the big questions. So I think we're also in a position now where we can go a bit more niche, right? And just have an informal session like this one here today, and just yeah, it doesn't always have to be the very, very big question. You can yeah, just look at some of these intersections in a bit more detail. So I mean, if you do have any suggestions for topics, right, then you can always just email me and suggest them, and then we can add them to the list for the next sessions. We could also, if you wanted, that, like, let's say you are really interested in a topic, maybe it's a bit niche, but you know someone who's done some really interesting work about it, or maybe you would like to share your own work, right? We can also have more formal presentations than what we had here today. So this is really the idea of this new Conflict Hub for the foreseeable future, is that it's just a space for whatever the members want. So, right, the members last year, they mentioned these three thematic areas they were interested in. So we're going through them now this year. But if you have anything else, any ideas, and just be in touch, and we can take it from there.
Wonderful.
Okay, and on that note, it's 3 o'clock sharp. As a true German, I'm gonna stop the meeting here.
Great. Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jody and George, for coming. And yeah, I hope you found the session useful, and would love to hear from you if you have any more ideas for the next few sessions.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, take care.
Yeah.
See you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.